Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidless Live. I am your host, Kurt Schmidt, and I am excited for today's show. We've got so much to talk about because it is a subject that is near and dear to me, which is mentorship. And I want to talk to you all about mentorship. But before we jump into mentorship, I do have to mention that we are hiring. Yes, we are hiring at Foundry, and you should check out the link here. It's a pretty good place to work. I mean, I work there, so can't be all bad, right? No, it's great. Tell your friends, tell two friends, and then tell those two friends to tell two friends, and then post it to all your social media and let everybody know, because we are hiring. We're excited for 2022, and we're hoping that maybe you would be interested in joining us. So as I get into it, I am going to talk to my friend Pat. Pat, how are you today?
I'm great. How about yourself, Kurt?
Oh man, I am on cloud nine now that I've got you locked in. You're here. You can't escape now. So Pat, tell me about where you're at and what's the work you're doing these days.
Yeah, so I am the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Twin Cities. I will throw out the caveat that I'm fairly new. I'm about 5 months into that role, so still figuring it out.
Yep.
But we are a national and actually worldwide mentoring organization.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you personally, give me kind of a little bit of your journey about how you ended up becoming a mentor, being a part of that. Was it one day you woke up and you were like, boy, I just need a mentor today, and that's going to be the rest of my life? Is that how it happened? Or did you trip and fall into what you're doing kind of like the rest of us?
I think it might have been a little bit of both. So
Okay.
I actually came here from a career in healthcare and health tech startups. So a pretty different world, right, on the for-profit side. And that started about a little over 20 years ago. And kind of coincidentally, when I left sort of my corporate job to found that first healthcare startup, that exact same week that I left that job, I actually opened a phone book, if you remember those, like went to the white pages, found Big Brothers Big Sisters, called them and said, I want to be a big. And I think it's really probably the power of the Big Brothers Big Sisters brand. I must have saw a billboard or something. It was in the ethos and in my head somewhere. And I actually called in that same week, not really knowing what I was getting into, but said, I want to do this. And I think there was something in me that whole time. And so along that path, this healthcare career, as well as different ways to volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters, first starting as a big, and then getting more into, it was a life-changing relationship, and I can speak plenty to that and happy to do so. But seeing the value of that relationship, finding other ways to volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters, ultimately joining their board 10 years ago. And then when an opening came up for this position, the board and the selection committee actually reached out and said, have you ever thought about it? And the truth is I hadn't, right?
No,
when you're in I'm in a healthcare sector, but giving it more thought and working sort of with the community around me and other advocates and coaches, frankly, kind of saw the alignment, saw the opportunity and dove in.
That's awesome. And so, was it one of those processes where, and I could talk a bit about my mentorship journey too, because I remember the first time somebody referred to me as their mentor, I was like, what? No, I'm figuring this out as I go along. Like, you're listening to me. Like, tell me about you. Do you because I hear so many people that I talk to that are, they're professionals, they're very experienced, but they're worried about the idea of like they have to know everything, and they have to kind of be this omega sort of version of themselves when it comes to mentorship. So the label mentor getting applied can be very nervous for some folks. What's some advice you'd have for people that are, maybe they're considering it, but maybe they're a little nervous about it?
Yeah, I think you actually hit on like the biggest sort of concern people have jumping in. And actually, Kurt, I would love to hear your story. So I hope you would share it as well. But if I think about when I met Derek, who is my little, and again, it was 23 years ago. And the truth is, I went in, I was 24 years old. I had this total, I'm an adult. I've got it all figured out. I'm gonna save the world one Derek at a time. And I think you quickly realize when you go into it, it is far more a give and take, right? It's this mutual relationship, these worlds coming together. and kind of a learning to me that it's not anything about saving. It's not saviorism in the slightest. It really is just elevating each other's voice and understanding each other's worlds. And I think even when you have that learning, which quickly comes, and sort of that understanding going in, the whole idea of it becomes a little bit easier, right? It really is a relationship, and early on it's built on just showing up, being accountable to each other.
Sure.
Right. And ultimately out of that, you create trust, and that creates the space for you to grow and to learn together and to experience together and to both mentor each other, influence each other, but also continue to listen. I kind of go even to the logistical side of that. We have a lot of bigs or potential bigs that say, I don't know what I'm going to plan. I don't know what we're going to do. Yeah. And do I have to go to the amusement park every weekend? And the truth is, it's the simplest things. I found that with Derek, some Saturdays I would say, hey, I have to go into work. And he would be like, can I come in with you? And it would be sort of seeing each other's worlds. And other days we would just hang out in his neighborhood and play in the park. And it was just the simplicities of life that I think we really bonded around.
Right. It makes a lot of sense because that's what I found when it took me a while because, I had some great mentors growing up, and it's just like I've talked about this on the show repeatedly, is that as I started to grow in my leadership roles, I started doing what I thought you were supposed to do, which is read all the books on leadership, and you read all the books, and then you leave thinking you're more confused probably than when you started. And then, but where I learned the most was from learning from other people's experiences. So I like what you're saying there because it makes a lot of sense, is that if people can be a part of experiences with you, they can learn a lot because they're seeing your perspective into those things. They're seeing how you're responding to things, the language you're using, the visual and verbal cues you're giving off in those sections. That there's billions of more data points there than there is in just, hey, go read this book. Do you feel that, because that's something that came up, right? Is that how formal does this need to be if I'm going to be a mentor? Do I have to have like a checklist, and do I have to have, like you said, in the big situation, do I have to put on a pizza party every weekend? Like, how do you get past those thoughts? Is it just you dive in and you're learning a lot from being a mentor, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, I think you're nailing the attitude, right? It's going in saying I'm here to learn versus I'm here to have all the answers and to teach. And of course, I work at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm a big fan and a little biased, but we also do. We're here to help every step of the way. So the skill of this staff in creating matches, right, aligning common interests, similarities, personality dynamics. We're taking that step forward, and then we are helping you to create that relationship. So we're going to always have programming that you can attend together.
Sure.
We have guidance that you can reach out to, but it really is sort of stepping in with an open mind, and again, sort of being open to learning. I just heard from another agency, and they did a study across their bigs, and 100% of bigs said, if I knew what this was like now, going in, I would have done this sooner, right? There are all these barriers and things that sort of slow us down. And again, we've got all voices in our heads and all that stuff. Yes,
a lot of stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly.
Yep. And so let's flip the script a bit on people that are looking for mentorship. Now, in the professional world, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you can't go and pick a mentor. Mentors pick you, and they choose you. Have you found that to be kind of the situation in your professional career? And then how is it different with Big Brothers, Big Sisters?
Yeah, I think in my professional career, that probably has been a little more true, right? Sort of the similarities were based in another decision you made. We both went into this field. We both went into this school. We both joined this team.
Sure, yeah. There's some commonality there.
Yeah. I think with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, because two parties are really choosing to enter into a relationship kind of from scratch, right? And one party being the big or the mentor, and the other party being the little and the little's family. And I think because of that, there has to be a little bit more intentionality around that learning. But I also think that's the incredible value of it, right? If I think about Derek and I think we would both say, or at least I would say, but I've heard him say it, joining Big Brothers Big Sisters was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
If I think about Derek's role in my life and our lives intertwining, our communities coming together, he was best man at my wedding. He actually pushed me to pursue this position. But the perspectives I've gotten from Derek and the discussions we've had, what I've learned from him, and hopefully what he's learned from me, I would never have gotten anywhere else. I can say that with 100% confidence that the circles I were in, it really was a bringing of worlds, and if you think about the space we're playing in today, where we're trying to create inclusivity and belonging, right? I think Big Brothers Big Sisters is the perfect example of that, right? It's taking all that learning we have and all the books we're reading and all the trainings we're doing at our corporate jobs and saying, let's put it into an actual experience. And I think the learning that goes both ways and the inclusivity and perspective that brings is something that's hard to find elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you've got so many people out there wanting this better world, and I've gotten into fights online and with people, because I truly believe that if you're someone complaining about the type of employees you're attracting, the type of network you're building, I mean, that's really, it's 100% on you to go out there and experience those new things and look for those new areas. They're not going to just show up at your door. And I understand, I have people push back and they're saying, well, I'm married, I have kids, I'm too busy to do these things. Well, then why are you over here complaining about the way this economic statute, you're not, they say put your money where your mouth is, but when it comes to Big Brothers Big Sisters, it feels like put your time where your mouth is, right? Which is, in my opinion, worth more than any, dollar, more money. My time is worth everything. And so that's the most valuable thing you can be giving to another person. And, in your experience, do you find that like you said, people wish they would have done this earlier? What are some of the other benefits that you've heard from other people saying about being a part of this program?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning or revelation that happened to me as well, and it sounds like you and your mentoring opportunities as well, is like what you get out of it, right?
Yeah,
so I 100% agree that like giving of your time is a precious gift, but that's really where the value is. But I think how quickly you realize how much I'm being changed, how much I'm learning, how much I'm growing is the beauty of the relationship as well. It makes for a different sort of volunteer experience that I think is, we want you to be committed and confident going in, but it's something that usually is a surprise to individuals and is what maintains these relationships that go years and years and families coming together.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about, maybe when it's not working so well, when mentorship is not working in that way, excuse me. When mentorship is not working in that way, where both are feeling the growth, is there common issues that can be worked on that you've seen? Is there things that are like the same across these discussions that you've had? Because one thing comes to mind is it's probably communication problem right off the bat, right?
Yeah, I would say most of the time it is communication, and it's still a relationship, and not all relationships are 100% perfect match. So
right.
We have times where, for whatever reasons, the little and the big don't connect, or clearly somebody moves away, some life dynamics change, or communication. And you might find littles that have the wrong expectations going into the program. I would also say on the side of the big or the mentor, and this has been a learning that's continual for me, and I spoke to it a little bit earlier, is going in with this idea that you're saving someone and this saviorism. And I think, again, I had it. So, and I continue to even work against it. It's not something that's on or off. I think very often it's easy to feel like my norm is the norm, right? Yeah. And everyone needs to follow the norm to success. And the truth is, what we want to really push, and when we think about mentoring, is listening, is elevating the voice of everyone, including the big and the little, and using that to help guide us, right? To understand the challenges and ultimately to link those to opportunities.
Yeah. And again, I think being intentional, I think you're talking about that as well, being intentional in that, I want this thing. I have something I want to accomplish. Right. So as I kind of stated in the description of this talk today, I think one of the first things, which is what it sounds like you're exactly talking about, is just take a step and look in the mirror first before you start going out and trying to find people to mentor, right?
Yeah, I think having an understanding, and I mean, we're all looking for ourselves, right? I'm 47
Sure.
years old and still lost in the world, but yeah, I think it's going in both understanding why you're there, again, not to save, and to the points you made earlier, with an open mind, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
not saying I know what this is going to be, I know what it looks like, I know what the outcome is, and I know how to get there. There's a mentoring relationship clearly that goes both ways, but there's also a friendship that's going to form. And
Yeah.
even if you think about some of your friendships you have, it's not like you met at that cocktail party and said, "Here's the plan," and we're going to
for the next 20 years, we're going to text each other weird gifts and things, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna, but still.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, I mean, obviously, it's impossible not to go into one of these relationships with some sort of fantasy about what is going to happen and what you're going to get out of it, because there is a big promise there, right? I mean, it is about changing lives. I mean, the messages from Big Brothers, Big Sisters isn't like, hey, glance off of people and see how it is. No, it's, or speed dating, or that's not the messaging that comes from your organization, right? It is about commitment. It is about intentionality and doing this with a purpose, right? So, to your point, there's times where you just got to take your hands off the wheel and say, let's see where this goes, right? You can't force and control all of those interactions. Just like you said, it's a relationship.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I find myself wanting to like applaud or preach or cheer while you're talking. But yeah, that's exactly it. You do need to be committed, right? I mean, it's still a relationship. It's still, and even when I say commitment, we ask for our core program. We have lots of programs that have different commitment levels, but for our core program where you're connected with a little in the community and you're doing things together, we ask for a year commitment. And it's almost less about the year, and you find out that people fly by it and they keep, no one's crossing off X's on the map.
Checking off dates on a calendar.
But it's really more the commitment and sort of the responsibility to, even if you didn't make it a year, or even if you made it 5 years, that you close it with respect and with communication, right? And that you're talking throughout. And it's more about, again, showing accountability. And like you said, commitment, and then having some freedom within that to say, how can I help somebody grow, and how can I grow as well?
Yeah. And again, in the professional world, I found it doesn't have to be a very formal sort of, you're not handing over a contract or things to people to sign. But one of the things that I do challenge people, especially the mentees, the people looking for mentorship, is a lot of times they'll look at these people that are, at least on paper, very accomplished, very successful, maybe people very stable, right? They seem to have everything going on, and they don't want to pester them. They don't want to bother them, and so they'll wait, until maybe things are like really struggling, and then they just kind of explode, instead of, and so, one of the things, the pieces of advice I've given people looking for mentorship is to keep it consistent, keep it constant, because that repeated iterative approach, if you will, to that relationship, will just keep bringing new opportunities, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna overwhelm. If you're just meeting once a quarter, a lot of things happen in 90 days to people, right? You can have some big life changes. So is that kind of the approach you also take with Big Brothers, Big Sisters? So it's an iterative approach to that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on so many important things there, and yeah, absolutely iterative, constant. It shouldn't be just a lifeline, right? When you're right, things are at their
Right.
lowest. But it also kind of speaks to, I mean, very much we believe every child can benefit from a mentor, and at any point in their childhood. So we want to make sure we're promoting that, and we often get individuals, and there's not anything necessarily wrong with this, but they might say, I want the child with most need, that needs the most help. And it does sort of feed into that saviorism mentality a little bit, but it also is, we have populations that have historically and then currently systematically been pushed more to the margins, right, and have additional barriers put in front of them. And we work
Sure.
with the populations like that, and all populations across the Twin Cities. And we do want to reiterate that it's not just that moment of need. It's not just what you perceive as the need, right? We're not making assumptions, which again, sort of fill that some of the motives that might come in, but it's really that all children at all times could use a mentor, right? There's plenty of studies that show the number one factor in building resilience, so self-esteem, self-confidence, positive decision-making, is the presence of a caring adult, right? And it multiplies with more caring adults in your world. And that's really a lot of what we're trying to fulfill as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because again, the work you're doing there, while it's super important, it also, like I said, it translates into all aspects of life, your professional career, your personal career, the opportunities that presents. Back to your point, I've been a child, I've been a teenager, and and listening to the people closest to me at the time sometimes wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to listen to people that I felt empathized more, or sympathized more with the situation and the things that I was doing. So to your point, there isn't sort of this one avenue that will correct everything, right? It's this kind of constellation of approaches, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the word constellation, I've been hearing that so much. I'm glad you kind of picked up on that. But it's the word, I don't know if it's a buzzword or it's actually how we're describing it, but you're exactly right. The input of the constellation of all these different sources to help you. And, even the anecdote there being like, none of us wanted to listen to our parents as teenagers, right? So to have the different sources that can kind of come in.
Yep.
And again, early on, you're just showing up, but you create that trust so that when you get to the teen years, you can have those conversations. It's hard to go up to someone day one and be like, you need to do this and this and this, and here's some ways to get there. But if you have a little bit of trust and, you're willing to show your own humility of how you succeeded or didn't succeed, it goes a long way in sort of creating communal goals together.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I say, going into the idea of looking for mentorship, you really first have to understand, what is it that you want to accomplish? What do you want out of this relationship? And the mentor, whether or not they know it, they also need to take the time to do the same, because the idea is not to be a lopsided relationship. It's to be a relationship where both people grow from, right? Because to your point, yeah, I get it. I could see impatient and probably privileged people saying, I have a lot of guilt and I want to get rid of it today. Give me a very needy person so I can get rid of this guilt that I have today. But to your point, this is about growing over time. This isn't about flipping on and off a light switch or writing a check and that solves the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take checks too. Don't get me wrong, Kurt. But yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with what you said too.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Don't take the checks. Don't get me wrong. Let's be clear, because that's always important too, right? And so with your being new in this role, obviously this is a like you said, a global organization. How do you look at maybe just our area here in the Twin Cities? Where do you see opportunities, challenges? What are some things you're going to be focused on in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, and I'm sure this is so that we're a federation. We have 230 agencies across the country, Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies. We are Big Brothers Big Sisters Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And across all the agencies, I mean, we have the same goals or challenges or struggles of, yes, we need to raise money,
Mm-hmm.
send those checks,
Yep.
and volunteers. So we always need more volunteers. And every agency also struggles that we need more male volunteers.
Ah.
So we
Okay.
actually have about 200 littles on our wait list. They're waiting for bigs,
Mm.
right, to create this connection. The vast majority of those are little boys or boys. And so, it's kind of odd. And the flip side of it is for women, we actually have more female women volunteers, right? So you see this cycle of we need more male volunteers and
Sure.
how that continues, right? We need boys that could use a mentor, and we don't have enough mentors to help them, right? And
Okay.
on the female side, we have a much better balance, and then that cycle just continues, right?
Sure.
So until we get more male mentors, it'll be difficult to break that cycle. So we're always pushing on that. And every agency feels that. I think
Okay.
specific to the Twin Cities, COVID isn't specific to the Twin Cities, but we have that. COVID has created greater isolation for our youth,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Created greater academic barriers or lag for our youth, and especially those that have been pushed to the margins, right? The resource gap has been, as we know, even widened during COVID, which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
We also, within our community, and again, not specific to us, but absolutely heightened in us, is the George Floyd, right? The murder of George
Sure.
Floyd, social unrest, right? So and we're not a reform organization, right? We
Right.
work from the bottom up. We are changing hearts and minds and having that work within the system. Ultimately, we want it, and we support system change as well. But that plays heavily into sort of our community and who we are. And frankly, I think our community has some tarnish on it
Mm-hmm.
from what's
Sure.
happened over the last couple of years. And honestly, when we really think about it, for decades and centuries. And we want to see Big Brothers Big Sisters as an organization that pulls parties together at the corporate level, at the community level, at the individual level, and lots of opportunity there, and still lots of challenges as well.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, there is, back to your point, there is so many changes that are of a social nature that needs to happen, not just an economic or just a political or whichever. It is about bringing people together, people who are separated, people who can benefit from each other, but maybe, in the natural course of our social structure, don't get to interact or they don't run into each other, right? So I've got a lot of male listeners to the show, so I definitely suggest go give Pat and his organization a call, because they're looking for people like you. We have a lot of professionals that listen to this show in my audience. So I encourage all of you to go and explore an opportunity with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Fantastic organization. So Pat, if I do want to become a part of it, where do I go? How does the process work from the mentor standpoint?
Yeah, the easiest way, and again, so we are a national organization. I know you have national listeners, so
Yeah.
you can always find an agency near you, and you would do that through bbbs.org.
Okay.
And you would put in a zip code. Now, specific to the Twin Cities, where I'm kind of a fan, you would go to bigstwincities.org. Bigstwincities.org. There's a big donate button. I'm used to saying that, so you can also donate.
Well, let's not skip that. There is a big donate button.
There's a big donate button. Very easy to click.
Yep. As you should. And you should click it multiple times.
Yeah, you should click all the buttons, frankly. There's also a large volunteer button. And you click on that. We're going to give you some information about attending an information session. And you can learn more about the program. And even if it's just kind of in your head, you have an inkling, I so strongly invite you to just take that first step. Right? Come, listen to an information session, learn more, learn about it from other individuals in your life that mentor. And I'm biased, but you won't regret it. And I mean it from you're volunteering, you're doing your community service, but the impact to you is just something I really think it's hard to understand it until you get into it. I often say this, And I believe it. And I should also say there are plenty of amazing organizations in the Twin Cities nationwide to mentor with. So if it's not Big Brothers Big Sisters, get out and see what you can give, and you're going to get as well. But for us, I think anyone can be a big. It doesn't take any particular experience. You can be any age. You can have any background. It doesn't take any, anyone can be a big, but it turns out like the really special ones are the ones that do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's the value that you get. You express this, Pat, is the value you get out of that is immeasurable, and it is something you can't purchase, and you can't experience until you actually go and be a part of that sort of group. So, personally, like I said, I've never learned as much in my life as I have been being a mentor or being a teacher. That's when I was growing on steroids, compared to, when I've been a part of an organization and been a part of meetings and all these things, all the things that I hoped would help me grow. It turns out, where the growth where I wanted that acceleration, I just needed to get over myself a little bit and put myself out there. Honestly, I just, and honestly, that's what I would tell people watching this show. Get over yourself, get out there, give it a try. Again, to your point, it's informational. There's nobody sitting there waiting for you to sign a contract or buy a timeshare before you leave or anything like that. Right. So, it's definitely, and I'm sure it's a very pleasant process. So I definitely recommend people go and check it out. Pat, thank you so much for taking the time today. I love our conversations. I always leave them feeling charged. And so I appreciate the work you do. It's so important. And so I urge you, keep it up, man. It's great. I'm very excited for the new leadership over there and to see what you do next year.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt. We appreciate the opportunity today as well. Prior to taking this role, prior to joining the board, I could have talked about Big Brothers, Big Sisters all day long. So appreciate this forum as well. And thank you to you and everyone listening for the time today.
That's great. All right. Thanks, Pat. We will talk to you soon. All right, everyone. We are hiring. Speaking of, joining awesome organizations like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, you can join an awesome organization too. Which organization would that be? Well, I don't know. I'm sure you'll find one out there that's great. So, but I do want to say thank you for watching today. It's been a pleasure. I want to say thank you to Pat and the folks over at Big Brothers, Big Sisters for the work that they do. And just thank you for taking the time today. You're amazing. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you next time.